Oh man, what a beautiful day outside. I'm just getting some fresh air before I go into my shop and start the day. And this morning I was reading a book entitled Truths of History. And I've mentioned this before in some of my videos. I've mentioned this before in my newsletter. It's a historical reprint book that we had done, and I was looking it over, and it was about midway through. There's a part on Jefferson Davis and how Jefferson Davis should have his rightful place in history. And within that section, it describes all of Jefferson Davis's accomplishments. And it had me thinking of how many times I've had people come into my shop and tell me about visiting the first White House of the Confederacy. The first White House of the Confederacy there in Richmond, Virginia, kind of like the Museum of the Confederacy, or what was once known as the Museum of the Confederacy, has been taken over. It's been taken over by people who absolutely detest and hate Confederate history. They hate Confederate heritage, and it's apparent in the tours that they give. But I have these people come in the shop all the time, and we'll get to talking about Jefferson Davis. Let's say I took the tour at the first White House of the Confederacy, and I'll say I took the tour too. Here are my experiences, and they say here are my experiences, and it's always so disparaging. The tour guides will rant on about how Jefferson Davis was this sickly man, and he just wasn't qualified for this position, and he just made so many poor decisions, and he was such a horrible human being. He was so horrible. They don't mention anything positive about the man. And let me tell you this, there is plenty of positive stuff to talk about when it comes to Jefferson Davis. Anyway, the Truths of History talks about that. There's like a list of probably close to 24 bullet points of all of Jefferson Davis's accomplishments that he had before the war and during the war, but especially before the war. Jefferson Davis held some very high, profound positions within the United States government. And he was also responsible for many things, like, starting the idea to do a Panama Canal, helping relations with Cuba and different countries, expanding the military, expanding forts, building all these different projects that took place within the federal government that Jefferson Davis was responsible for. And not only that, but if you read his writings between him and his wife, if you read the letters, his personal correspondence, this was a godly man. This was a man who cared about his community and his family and was trying to do the best that he could for his government, for his home. So one thing I do want to mention too about Jefferson Davis and his wife that surprisingly they didn't talk about when it comes to the tour there in Richmond at the first White House of the Confederacy, and that's him and his wife actually adopted a black child and took them in as part of their family. Now that story in and of itself goes so against the narrative that they're trying to paint, and that's why they don't mention those kind of stories and those kind of facts within their tours and within their presentations. And it goes like that with a lot of our history. So at these historical sites, if there is a piece of evidence that goes against the said narrative, of course they're going to hide it. Of course they're going to disparage these people that we know are good, honorable men and women. So that's my 2 cents on Jefferson Davis. He deserves his right place in history. And if you don't have a copy of Truths of History, it's a historical reprint. It's a phenomenal resource to have, and it's only like $12 on my website. Check it out on ConfederateShop.com and learn more about Jefferson Davis. We've got a ton of books too on ConfederateShop.com about Jefferson Davis. Check it out.